Welcome to another Coaster Kev video. Today I'll be talking about my journey to becoming a roller coaster enthusiast and my travels so far. Enjoy! With the new year, I wanted to get some of the credits on some of the coasters I missed for the grand opening, as well as try some new parks. My first stop was back to Orlando, where I was able to get my first ride on an icebreaker. It was definitely crazy ejector time, but I'm excited to try it again without the comfort collars. I also got to try their 7 Seas food festival, and definitely don't recommend the 18 tastings for one person, even if you're there the whole day. It was quite a bit of food, but a fun time trying everything. My next stop in the same evening was for Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. The ride is definitely rough, but I still had fun, until I got a headache, after about a few rides. Definitely looking forward to the iBox track that it's getting from RMC to help make it smoother. The next day, I went to Busch Gardens Tampa to finally ride Iron Gwazi. I was lucky enough to ride it about 15 times that day and had a blast. It blew me away with its fast pacing and crazy intense wave turn that felt like you were going to hit the lift structure, but I still favored Velocicoaster as my favorite Florida coaster. It ended up being a pretty empty day, so I also got to spend plenty of time trying out SheiKra after missing it my last time due to refurbishment it was getting. My next trip was in May 2022 when I flew out to Raleigh, North Carolina for my Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Kings Dominion, and Carowinds trip. At Busch Gardens, I bolted to Pantheon so I could get the newest credit there. It was a very fun ride, but nothing compared to Iron Gwazi that I ride a couple of months ago. It was missing some more forces, but the swing launch definitely delivered. Another highlight was Verbolten, which was much more intense for a family coaster than I would have imagined. I was sad to have to miss Alpengeist since it was closed that day, but I made it on Griffin, which was fun, but very similar to SheiKra. Lastly, it was fun to ride Loch Ness Monster for the iconic interlocking loops. It was definitely weird with its 2 lift hills though. It was a fun day at Busch Gardens, but I was exhausted, so I made my way to Doswell, Virginia, and was very excited to see Intimidator 305 dominating the skyline near my hotel. The next day, I visited Kings Dominion. The park was beautiful, and I loved how sprawling the park was, and the new Jungle Expedition area was great. I really liked experiencing my first 4D free spin and bobsled coaster with Reptilian. Flight of Fear was closed, so I had to wait until next time, but I got my first ride on I-305. Even though it was an overcast and slightly sprinkling, this ride really showed speed and awesome transitions. I loved how much fun it was despite not being able to keep my eyes open with all the water drops beating down with a fast pace. Luckily I was able to ride it again without the rain. The park was pretty empty, so I was able to ride everything to my contentment and then made my way back to Carowinds for a 5+ hour drive. After the long drive, I got to Carowinds with about 3 hours before closing and headed straight to Fury 325 to experience it. After a few rides, I got stuck on the brake run while it downpoured for about 5 minutes and then stopped as they finally could get us into the station. It was definitely a wild experience, but gave me a reason to explore more of the park. So I got to try Copperhead Strike, which I thought was really good with all the hang time and positive G's. I finished off the night with Afterburn and some night rides on Fury 325, and really thought Afterburn was my favorite invert. Fury at night was a wild ride and another on a whole nother level, and was so mesmerizing going through the tunnel at night after all the treble clef turnaround. In September, I made my way to Cincinnati so I could go to Kings Island. While at Kings Island, we were able to enjoy a wonderful day, and I was super excited for this great park that has a great coaster lineup. Overall, this park had an amazing lineup, and I really enjoyed Flight of Fair since it had really cool space theming, as well as Mystic Timbers, which I thought was a phenomenal ride and definitely my favorite Woody so far. Another highlight was Adventure Express, which I thought was an incredibly crazily themed mine ride. Overall, I think Orion was all that great because it was kind of slow to me, but maybe I'll have to give it another try. After Kings Island, we drove all the way to Santa Claus, Indiana for Holiday World. It was an amazing day there. From the free soft drinks to the amazing rides with Voyage, as well as Thunderbird, we had an amazing time. The park wasn't too crowded, but still a decent amount of people and a good amount of waiting. But it was still an amazing time as we had a whole day there. I also got to try out a few of the water coasters there, which was definitely a highlight and definitely something you don't want to miss. The charm of Holiday World was really something sweet, and seeing all the different themed areas to the different holidays was quite cool. Voyage is definitely their best ride there, and I'm really excited to go to Hollywood Nights so I can check it out there and do it trimless. My next stop was Kentucky Kingdom to finish up the trip. Kentucky Kingdom was definitely an interesting park. I really enjoyed Lightning Run, but I still thought Storm Chaser was a lot more fun. A sleeper hit of the park was definitely Kentucky Flyer, which I thought was a really great gravity group coaster. The amount of airtime that you got on Storm Chaser is just an amazing thing, and I really enjoyed all the elements. It definitely reminded me of a small version of Steel Vengeance. Overall, I thought the park was very charming. I thought the back area by T3 was actually pretty interesting, but sadly there isn't much out there, but it should be interesting to see what they do with the old plot for T3 now that they're going to be removing it. In October, I was back to Cleveland so I could attend Hollow Weekends at Cedar Point and go to Kennywood for their Phantom Fall Fest. Early October for Hollow Weekends ended up being ideal with very small lines so I could enjoy all the roller coasters without too much hassle. I didn't really do the mazes though. However, that's enough about Cedar Point. First visit to Kennywood. Similarly to Cedar Point, the park was pretty empty during the day for a Saturday until it got later in the day when we were close to the haunted house's opening. I was able to get multiple rides on everything without much need for my skip the line pass except for Terminator in the Dark, Steel Curtain, and Skyrocket, as well as some flat rides. Highlights of the trip for me were Phantom Revenge, Steel Curtain, and Skyrocket. Despite all the hate on the second half of Skyrocket, I really did enjoy it, but do agree it's pretty boring after the top hat and 3 inversions. Steel Curtain was interesting, and a blast at night since it's a blur twisting through that layout. On top of it all is Phantom's Revenge. Little did I know that it would make it into my top 10 coasters. It was so thrilling during the day, but the night rides were amazing, and I was lucky enough to make it for the last ride of the night after marathoning for it more than 10 rides in a row. Finishing up last year, I went to Northern California to check out the new Safari Sidewinder at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom for a special event, and then head to California Great America, or CGA, and the same day to finally get all the credits there. Safari Sidewinder was surprisingly fun, as it was similar to the Spinning Wild Mouse at Fun Spot America at Kissimmee, with a crazy fast turning at the end. It was also nice to see them incorporate some terrariums as part of the queue. The last time I had gone to CGA in the summer, it was too crowded, so I only got to go on Gold Rusher, which I thought was overrated, so I was excited to go on everything else on this less crowded winter day. I ended up going on everything and marathoning Railblazer, which I preferred over Fiesta Texas's clone. It felt so much faster and had more whip off the drops. I think the rock work also helped make it more intense with the near misses. Overall, I really enjoyed the park, but we'll have to go back for Grizzly, even though people always seem to hate on it. With another year in the books, I was excited for 2023. This year, I will be going on 3 trips as of now. Starting in May 31st, I'll be heading to Chicago to go to Six Flags Great America, not to be confused with CGA. From there, I'll go to Indiana Beach, then Holiday World for Hollywood Nights. After Hollywood Nights, I'll go to Six Flags St. Louis and then Silver Dollar City. I'm excited to check out these parks for the first time. Feel free to send me any advice you may have, as I definitely appreciate it. My second trip will be with the coaster crew to Hershey Park. Prior to that, I will be going to Six Flags Great Adventure for my first time, so I'm hoping El Toro safely reopens so I can finally try an Intamin prefabricated wood coaster and see how good they are. Lastly, I'll be doing a huge coaster trip with the coaster crew to Denmark, Norway, and Sweden for their Nordic Adventure coaster trip, which I'm excited to do for my first international coasters. I'm excited to get my 300th coaster credit there as well. My trips this year are definitely going to be one for the books, and I'm excited for you guys all to join my journey. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Special thanks to El Toro Ryan and Coaster Force for use of their coaster video footage. Thanks for staying this far in the video. If you have any questions about my travels to plan your trip or any advice from me, please like, comment, and subscribe on this video. With that, this has been Coaster Kev, and I'm coasting out.